What's going on, everybody? Hockey time here, back for another week of NHL Power Rankings. And first things first, I owe you guys an apology because the rankings that I thought I uploaded last week never ended up getting uploaded. I went to my analytics page on like Tuesday or so just to check in and see how it was doing. And it turned out that it failed to upload for whatever reason. I tried to dig into it more and really couldn't figure out what happened. So, going to flash those rankings on the screen here for you now. I believe it was Carolina at 1, Edmonton at 2, and the Rangers at 3. And you guys can kind of see where the rest of the list stood from there. But with regard to this week, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had a baseline for where the movement was coming from when I talk about who's dropped X spots, who's gone up X spots, whatever. But number 32 doesn't really matter about last week's ranking because it's the same spot they've been the last few weeks. That's the San Jose Sharks, 0-2-1 on the week, 1-8-1 in their last 10. And for the team at 31, it's the Anaheim Ducks. Same deal, 0-2-1 on the week and 1-8-1 in their last 10 as well. No need for any movement or any further discussion on those two teams, at least in my opinion. Number 30, though, the first team with some movement dropping 2 spots is Columbus. Columbus 0-3-0 on the week and 1-7-2 in their last 10. It's not been a good run for them, just trying to kind of drag through the end of the year here. They did have some competitive games, but just not quite enough to get anything done. A rough night against Arizona, especially for Elvis Merzlikins, who played pretty well, but just couldn't get any real support going. So tough week for the Blue Jackets. They dropped to 30. 29 kind of benefits from the Blue Jackets falling, but also had a decent week, and that's Chicago, 2-1-0 on the week, 5-5 in their last 10. Has been a decent little stretch for them as far as things are considered for the Blackhawks. So moving up here one spot to number 29. 28, same boat. They had a little bit of a better week, 3-0. 4-4-2 in their last 10, and that is Montreal. Beating up on some relatively strong teams here, taking down the Flyers, and I'm forgetting who they played Monday. Or no, they beat the Avalanche. They beat the Flyers and the Avalanche. So two teams in the playoffs or in the hunt for the playoffs, and they take care of business against both of them. Their goaltending's been really strong, and that's largely been the biggest reason for their winning in the last week or so. Number 27, this team dropped 7 spots. One of a few teams dropping 7 spots this week, but 0-4 and 2-8 in their last 10. It's Calgary. This team was not all that long ago, still kind of in the mix for the playoffs. Those days are long gone. They have looked quite rough. The goaltending's just struggled like a lot over the last couple weeks, and that's been the main reason for their drop, similar to Montreal's reason for them climbing. But just all in all, has not been a good stretch here for the Flames. Obviously, not going to be making the playoffs this year. We'll see what happens for them in the offseason. Very likely that Markstrom moves, but in the meantime, they're in a similar boat to Columbus, just trying to drag out through the end of the year. Number 26, this team does not move at all, despite a pretty strong week, 2-0-1 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are just 4-4-2 in their last 10. Probably not making the playoffs either. They're not mathematically eliminated yet, but they have a lot of ground to cover on these teams ahead of them. If they keep up this type of play, there is still a chance. I just don't see it happening at this point. It's been a disappointing end to the year to the Penguins, to say the least, but they do have a pretty decent week here at 2-0-1. Number 25, another team not moving despite a decent week. They're also 6-4 in their last 10, 2-1-0 on the week. The Arizona Coyotes. A great week for the Doan family. Josh Doan comes in, has a great game, 2 goals. He gets 2 assists in the next game. They take down the Blue Jackets and then kind of smack the Predators. So that was an impressive result from them, but just not quite enough for me to move them up. Though you could kind of flip-flop them back and forth with the team at 24, who also went to 2-1, and that's the Seattle Kraken. They, though, are 2-6-2 in their last 10, so not quite as good of a run from the Kraken, but I feel like probably still playing a little bit better than Arizona, just not quite getting results. So they both stay put at 24 and 25. At number 23, this is a team moving up 4 spots. They go 4-0 on the week. This is a type of result that if they were higher up on the list would probably end up in a much bigger jump, but they've not had a great year. They are 7-3 in their last 10, so it's been a good run generally from the Ottawa Senators. This team actually looked very good this week. Their, difficulty of opponent wasn't crazy, but nonetheless, the results are the results. The goaltending been consistent over a couple of games span for it seems like the first time all year. So good to see that from the Sens. It would have been nice to see this earlier in the year so that they maybe could have been involved in this playoff race, but neither here nor there. This week it was pretty good from them, so they move up 4 spots to number 23. 22 moving up just the 1 spot, and they're still technically in the mix in the playoffs as well, but I don't know if I see them making it either. That's the Buffalo Sabres. They go 2-1 on the week. A lot of teams 2-1 this week, but 2-1 on the week for them. 6-4 in their last 10. Ugo Pekka Luukkonen had the one really tough game where they just got lit up by Ottawa in the first period. And aside from that, it's been decent from Buffalo. They kind of put an end to New Jersey's season last night. The only game in the NHL, a game that both teams kind of looked at as must wins, but for the Devils, the team slightly more likely to make the playoffs, definitely needed to win this game against a team in Buffalo that's just coming off that loss to the Senators, and Buffalo gets it done at home. So good result from them. A tough one from New Jersey, though, and as a result, instead of moving up, they are at 21. They could have been 3-1 on the week and had a much better shot. Percentages wise, at least at getting into the playoffs. That loss with Buffalo, it doesn't literally kill their season, but it's going to be really, really tough for them to squeak in now, especially with the way the teams like Washington are playing, and even Philadelphia, despite having been kind of hit or miss this week, still in a playoff spot. So we'll see if the Devils can kind of pull off what's probably going to have to be a miracle at this point, but a tough way to end their week for sure, and very likely the kind of nail in the dagger for their season. So at number 20, another team dropping pretty significantly, 4 spots down, are the Detroit Red Wings. They go 0-2-1. They're only 3-6-1 in their last 10. This is not the results you want to see from a team trying to chase down a playoff spot. They were in a playoff spot not all that long ago, and it looked like they were kind of safe bets to get in. I even mentioned that I like their odds of making it better than I liked Tampa's. Looking pretty silly of me to have said that at this point, because Tampa looks very good right now, and the Red Wings do not. The goaltending has not been as good as it was a few weeks back. Dylan Larkin injured yet again in today's game. That, of course, does not apply to these rankings, but just a lot of struggles going on for the Red Wings, and I don't know if I see them sneaking in either with the way that they've been playing over the last couple weeks. So they fall to number 20. Number 19, this team moves up 3 spots despite not having a great run of late, but they had a decent week at 2-1, and that's the New York Islanders. All the teams around them losing on Thursday night kind of gave them a shot all of a sudden. We'll see if they can pull it out today. I think they play the Lightning, if I remember correctly. So we'll see what happens there. That's a huge game for both teams. The Bolts, of course, could catch Toronto with the victory, I believe, or pull back within 2 points. The Islanders, of course, could pull within a few points of that final playoff spot. But this week, 2-1, good to keep them in the race. And again, that win on Thursday was massive, especially with all the teams around them losing. At number 18, one of the teams they're chasing down, Philadelphia, 1-2-1 on the week. 3-5-2 in their last 10. We'll see if Ivan Fedotov coming into town ends up being the saving grace for them staying in the playoffs. The goaltending has been far and away the biggest issue for them lately. Felix Sandstrom in a bit of heat with John Tortorella this week. Torts had that quote after their game, I believe, last Sunday, kind of just saying, like, he's trying his best. He's not really supposed to be in this position, but he kind of threw like a baby fit in the presser. So he apologized to Sandstrom, but frankly, Sandstrom just should not be in the net in the NHL at this point. And Sam Harrison, similarly, has been playing okay, but he's not a starting goalie. They need a guy to come in to kind of take that role, and we'll see if Fedotov can be that person. But for now, just not good enough to move them up at all, but thankfully they don't drop, so they stick at number 18. Number 17, this team moves up 2 spots, another one of these Eastern teams in the playoff mix, and that's Washington. Washington's looked really good over this last stretch. They're only 2-1 on the week, but 6-4-0 in their last 10, have climbed themselves back into this race, and frankly look like the most likely of these teams to finish that 3rd spot in the Metro. Probably will end up making that, if not the wild card spot. So they're not locked in yet by any means, but it's been good from them. Charlie Lindgren's been quite strong. We'll see if Darcy Kemper can figure that out so that they have a little bit more of a safety net than just having Charlie Lindgren be the guy that wins them games pretty much single-handedly. But in general, that recipe has worked over the last couple of weeks. So if the Caps can keep it up, they will probably find themselves in that 3rd spot in the Metro. And for this week, they move up the 2 spots on the power rankings, which much less important to them, of course. Number 16, this team's actually been on a very good stretch of late. 1-0-1 on the week, 6-1-3 in their last 10, but a couple teams, I think, just slightly outplaying them. So they actually dropped 1 spot, and that is Minnesota. The main reason for this is that the team at 15 beat them earlier in the week, and I know I usually don't move teams based on just one team beating another in that head-to-head matchup, but these teams were right next to each other. And the team at 15 also won 1 extra game this week. So team at 15, the St. Louis Blues, they're also just ahead of them in the standings. Minnesota in kind of a similar spot to a team like New Jersey. The numbers are just really not in their favor anymore as far as their chances to make the playoffs. It's not impossible, and they have a big game against Vegas tonight, but they're going to need some luck for sure to get themselves in, and of course they're going to have to win the games that they have ahead of them. So Minnesota at 16, and St. Louis has looked quite good, 7-2-1 in their last 10, and they go 2-0-1 on the week, so they move up 2 spots actually to number 15. Number 14, the other biggest drop on the week. I had a tough time figuring out where to put this team because they had looked so good for so long, but recently a lot of these teams in the high middle of the pack have been playing quite well. Of course, they're trying to hang on to playoff spots or secure seeding, home ice advantage, etc. And this team at 14, 0-3-1 on the week, 4-5-1 in their last 10. And it looks like they're probably going to end up in that third spot in the Central, and that is Winnipeg. You do not want to have the 3 seed in this Central Division because that means you're on the road for a series that's already going to be a dogfight. They do still have Connor Hellebuck, so I have faith that once this team gets into the playoffs, as they will, it's still going to be a close series with whoever they play, whether that's Dallas or Colorado. But this late stretch for them just has not been all that great. The offense has dried out a lot. Hellebuck's numbers have come down a bit. He's had some rough games, but just all in all, as a unit, this Jets team has not looked that great really over the last 2 weeks. And I didn't know whether or not 7 spots was appropriate, but the more I looked at the teams and the results over the course of the week, I felt that 7 spots was kind of necessary for where this team has been playing. So 7 spots down to number 14 for the Winnipeg Jets. Number 13, a team that's also had a pretty good week. Another one of these 2-1 teams, 6-4 on the week, is Los Angeles. They probably would have moved up in most other weeks, but team kind of just flip flopped over them. So despite the above 500 record, they end up sitting tight at number 13, though. The play from them has been pretty good. They're going to be in a dogfight back and forth with Vegas to see who gets the 3 seed in the Pacific versus who gets that number 1 wild card spot, or I guess at this point it's probably going to be the number 2 wild card spot with the way Nashville's been playing. But LA been solid enough. We'll see if they can find that 3rd spot in the Pacific if they even want it, because they're going to have to play Edmonton. Number 12, this team jumps 2 spots, the aforementioned Vegas Golden Knights. 3-0-1 on the week. It was a very, very good week from Vegas, and they're suddenly 7-2-1 in their last 10, a team that just a couple weeks back was looked at not really playing all that great. They had dropped all the way down the Pacific standings to find themselves in that last wildcard spot. And then this week, they kind of woke up and have been playing really good hockey. A fantastic performance from Logan Thompson earlier in the week, so very good to see that from him. And we'll see if Vegas can keep it up. I believe as of now, they are in the 3rd wildcard spot in LA, in the 3rd Pacific spot, and LA is now down to the wild card. So we'll see what happens today and in the remaining 10 or so games for both of these two teams who have been in lockstep for really a lot of the season, as it kind of should be. So number 11, this team, another team not moving at all this week, 1-2. They are 6-3-1 in their last 10, so the longer stretch has been better for the Vancouver Canucks. They had a tough schedule. I mean, they played Dallas. It was a homestand, so not excuses, but Dallas at the end of the week played a very tough game for them. They're still, of course, without Thatcher Demko. He was retroactively added to LTIR, so he'll probably still be back for playoffs, but just some paperwork there to be done for the Canucks. Not bad enough for me to bump them back below Vegas just yet, but if the trends for both these two teams continue, they'll probably end up below Los Angeles, to be honest, considering how well both of those two teams are playing and how kind of middle of the road Vancouver's been. But for this week, they stay put at number 11. Number 10, another of those teams that just a couple weeks back was playing very, very well and suddenly has dropped like 10 spots over the last 2 weeks, is Florida. Florida 1-2-1 on the week and just 3-6-1 in their last 10, stumbling their way into the playoffs. They still have some games to wake up. They actually just beat Detroit earlier today, but again, that does not count toward these rankings. So couple spots down here from number 6 to number 10 for Florida. I'm not really overly concerned about this team. The goaltending's still been very strong. Just kind of need to find some more goals, which we all know this team is more than capable of doing. Number 9, a team moving up 1 spot, really just thanks to Florida's fall, is Boston. They didn't have a great week either, 1-2 on the week, 6-4 in their last 10. So again, really just beneficiaries of Florida dropping. Of course, in that division, those are the 2 teams fighting for the 1 spot. So pretty appropriate there, but neither of these teams in their top form of the year or really anything close to it. So I felt appropriate to keep them both out of the top row. Into the top row, though, team at number 8, 2-2 on the week and 5-4-1 in their last 10, kind of coasting through at 500, is Toronto, which normally would not be a big deal. And frankly, may not be a big deal regardless, just because of how good the top 2 teams in both of the Atlantic and Metro division have been. But that 500 record has not been enough to keep Tampa from crawling up behind them and potentially looking to take over that 3rd spot in the Atlantic division. So Toronto does have to wake up if they prefer to stay in that spot, as they probably should. But again, the top 2 teams in both divisions in the East are just so strong that it's really not going to matter which one the Leafs line up against, it's going to be a tough, very likely 6 or 7 game series. Nonetheless, though, this week, 4 games, 2 wins, 2 losses. It is what it is here for Toronto. They stay put at number 8. Number 7, this team moves up 5 spots, one of the bigger jumps of the week. 2-0-1 over the course of the week, 8-1-1 in their last 10. The aforementioned Tampa Bay Lightning, they have been screaming through the standings, just doing everything they can to try to get into this 3rd seed in the Atlantic. Again, it won't end up making a huge difference regardless of where these two teams land. They're going to end up playing against very, very strong teams at the top of whichever division. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there for Toronto fans. They probably wouldn't mind dodging Boston or Florida, but then you end up with one of the Rangers or the Hurricanes. So it's all kind of a toss-up. All the teams at the top are so good. Tampa Bay becoming one of those teams that just looks like they are flying into the playoffs, kind of giving me Florida vibes from last year. And of course, they have Andrei Vasilevsky, so that is terrifying for whichever team they end up playing in the first round. But this week, quite good, 2-0-1, 8-1-1 in their last 10, moving up 5 spots to number 7. Number 6, another team dropping, and this one was a weird team to knock down so much, but the teams ahead of them, I feel like have just been playing so well. So 2-2 on the week, 6-2-2 in their last 10, and that's Edmonton again. They were number 2 last week, number 6 this week, not really at any fault of their own. 6-2-2 heading into the playoffs. Perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But the teams ahead of them, again, just playing very, very strong hockey. So I felt it was necessary to bump them down a few spots here to number 6. Number 5, another team playing pretty well over their recent stretch, but just not quite good enough to keep them ahead of some of these other teams. 1-1-1 on the week, but 8-1 in their last 10 is Colorado. Colorado suddenly looks like they might have a bit of goaltending drama. I'm sure it will still be Alex Georgiev in game 1 of the playoffs, but Justus Annunen has been very good for them in the recent games he's had. They also had a tough schedule this week. They take on the Rangers at the end of the week, bring them to overtime. They, of course, lose that tough game at home to Montreal, which was just kind of a stinker, I guess. Hard to get goals by Caden Primo that night, who was very, very good. But all in all, the Avs, I think, still playing quite well. A big game tonight at home against a team they probably should beat. So we'll see what happens tonight for Colorado. But in general, their play's still been pretty good, just not quite enough to keep them from dropping the 1 spot here to number 5. Number 4, a team that I had held out of the top row for quite a while just because they were winning games, but winning games against kind of weaker teams. Other teams were kind of keeping pace just above them. And this week, completely undeniable to keep Dallas Stars out of the top row. And in fact, they move up 5 spots to number 4 from number 9. 3-0 on the weekend, 8-2 in their last 10. They've taken down some stronger opponents than they had in weeks prior, and all in all, just look quite good despite the fact that Ottinger's numbers still aren't all that great, which kind of same vibes here as the Lightning. If Ottinger can heat up heading into the playoffs, this team is a team you do not want to see in any round, but especially not in the first round if you're a team like the Jets, right? So again, that's why that 3 seed is such a tough one in the Central. They could very well end up winning the division. This battle between Colorado and Dallas over the last 10-9 games is going to be really, really tight, really fun to watch, but Dallas has looked quite good, and I could not keep them out of this top row any longer, so they move up a few spots to number 4. Number 3, a team that's just been lighting up the entire NHL. They finally see their point streak snapped this week at 18 games, and kind of a tough one to the Coyotes, but up until that point had been playing extremely well, and I did not think that it was fair to drop them out of this top 3 just because of the loss to the Oats. Of course, I'm referencing the Nashville Predators here. UC Saros has been very good. The offense still finding ways to score goals. Again, making me look like a complete fool for all the comments I made about this roster earlier in the year. I do probably expect them to drop off in the last 2 or 3 remaining power rankings prior to the playoffs. I just don't, again, still don't think they have all of what it takes on paper to be a team at this level in like the top 6-7 teams in the league. I just don't see that in them. But their play in the last couple weeks has, of course, been reflecting that. They've been very, very good. We'll see if they can kind of bounce back from having that point streak snap. But in general, it's been quite good from the Preds. They are safely going to make the playoffs, and it's probably not going to be a fun series for whoever they run into in the first round. So they move up 5 spots here. 2 spots to number 3 from number 5. Number 2, last week's number 1 team, 2-1 on the week, 7-2-1 in their last 10. Losing number 1 at no fault of their own are the Carolina Hurricanes. This team has been fantastic. Freddie Anderson looked really good since his return. He will probably be ready to go for the playoffs, and for the first time in a while, he's probably going to be quite rusted. So it'll be scary for whoever they're playing against as well. But the Canes have just been rock solid really all season, but especially the last 3 quarters of it have been in and around this like top 3, top 5 range pretty much the whole time, and I don't expect that to change anytime between now and the end of the year. But of course, the team at number 1, the only other team to beat them in the entire league, also shares the division with them. The New York Rangers, 3-0 on the week, 8-2 in their last 10. Really unlucky that they share a division with the Canes if you're a Canes fan, but this team has just been undeniable. They've looked so good, beating up on other teams in the playoff mix, at the top of the playoff mix. Probably going to end up winning the President's Trophy. I think of all these teams in the mix here, Carolina, New York, Dallas, Colorado, Vancouver, Florida, and Boston. They're probably the team that's going to end up playing the strongest over this last stretch of games. Shesterkin's been very good. Jonathan Quick, in the games he's played, has still looked very good. So they have a good tandem there heading into the playoffs should something happen to Shesterkin. Just a team you really don't want to match up against. Their depth has been finding ways to score. Their defense has been very good, as it has been all year. So really good stuff all around from both of these teams, but the Rangers just edging out Carolina this week for that number 1 spot. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. I think only 1 or 2 of these left for the playoffs, maybe 3. I'd have to double check the schedule, but we're coming down to the last few. These, of course, will stop come playoff time, and we'll do some other coverage for those. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, as always, and subscribe as well. It is free. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the NCAA tournament as well. I will have something coming out probably at the end of the weekend for the teams heading to the Frozen Four. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks as always for watching, and we will talk to you guys soon.